Hi guys, welcome to Multiverse. Not too long ago I made a video about the all-new, all-different X-Men. And I was planning to make the classic X-Men next, but some of you guys asked for the 90s X-Men instead. So that's what we'll do today. So let's get this party started. So obviously we're starting with our friend Cyclops. Sadly within the context of DC Universe Online, this is as close to our friend Cyclops as I was able to get. Sadly, Cyclops had an asymmetrical look, which is kind of hard to reproduce within DC Universe Online. A lot of the styles we have in DC Universe Online are pretty much symmetrical. So I was kind of able to reproduce basically the 90s version of Cyclops was straps and pouches. That's pretty much how you could resume the look of the character. So I tried to reproduce some of the straps. Like the M pattern kind of works with the character still for Mutant. Although he had more like a Y pattern and he had some pouches also. I guess I could have tried to use the paramilitary style to get some extra pouches, but I thought it'd be better to just stick with some yellow lines to emulate the straps that the character had, as opposed to try to add extra pouches. So within the context of DC Universe Online, this is about as close to the classic 90s Cyclops as I was able to get. Also, some of you guys didn't specify if you wanted me to make the classic, because the 90s X-Men are different, whether you're referring to the comics or the cartoon. I will try to do a mix of both. Also, sadly, I don't have that many styles with my female characters. Either I would have to play a bit more of my female characters to farm for styles, or I would have to use replay badges to be able to get more styles from my female character. So sadly, I will stick to the male characters from the 90s X-Men. So sadly, I'm not going to include Jean Grey, Storm, Jubilee, Psylocke, and I'm sure someone else that I'm forgetting. And with our friend Cyclops, you have to use Heat Vision to mimic the optic blast that our friend Cyclops had, whether in the comics or in the cartoon. It's pretty much a staple of the character at this point. And as you can see, Heat Vision works really well to reproduce the visual effects for the power that our friend Cyclops is using. As for the styles, I'm using the Defiant Crusader for the headpiece, the protection goggles for the visor, obviously. The chest piece is the M-suit chest piece. The belt is the simple utility belt. The pants are the New Genesis pants. The gloves are the Aeronaut gloves. And the boots are the Nuclear boots. Most of what you see here you can get straight at character creation. The exception to that is the gloves, but you could use the slimline gloves in the meantime. And the same with the boots. The tall classic boots would work well enough, but here I'm using the Nuclear boots. Sadly, the Nuclear boots are a drop in a rip in time, if I recall correctly. I forget where I got the Aeronaut gloves. I think it's a drop from the wall, but it's been a long time. So within the context of DC Universe Online, this is about as close to our friend Cyclops, or at least the 90s version of Cyclops, as I was able to get. And next we have our friend Angel, also known as Dark Angel, and then later on his name was changed to Archangel. Also he was Death for a short while, but just when he was one of the horsemen for Apocalypse. And as you can see, you can recreate a pretty darn good version of our friend Angel. Obviously the pattern, like the red line patterns on the chest and legs, is not exactly it, but it's pretty. It still gives the essence of the character, even though it's not exactly it. In order to reproduce this style, I'll use the digital Invasion chest piece and pants. I'm using the Magic Champion bracers. The back piece is the Kryptonian Fire Soul back piece. And the headpiece is the Partial Cross. So as you can see, you can come up with a pretty darn good version of our friend Archangel. Although I will show an alternative just in case. The small mechanical wings could do well enough if you cannot get the Fire Soul back piece for some reason. And the paneled bodysuit for the chest piece and the pants also works well enough. These you can get by playing the duos, the tier 4 duos, or they're a random drop from those duos. I guess the mech tech wings could do the trick. Sadly, as you can see, they're not animated like the other wings, but they're still cool enough, I suppose. But for the wings, the better option is pretty much the Fire Soul wings, but you have to get them from the broker or from the Kryptonian time capsules. So I could understand if it's not really an option with some people. And for the headpiece, there's the Rune of the Norseman headpiece that actually looks pretty darn awesome. But it's probably a bit more difficult to get, which is why I showed you the other option. And next we have Beast, the blue furred version. They did try to cure him in the late 80s, but as usual it didn't last very long. And they brought him back to being his furry blue self quickly enough. Here I'm using the Ra's al Ghul headpiece. I forget where I got that headpiece. I think it's from the Demon's Plan. You have to gather either collections or briefings, I forget. I made a video about the headpiece, so just go watch that video and it'll tell you what you need in order to be able to get it. The hands, these are the werewolf hands from the Halloween seasonal, the same with the feet. The pants are the brief. The belt is a clasp belt. Those two come from character creation. So as you can see, you can create a pretty darn good looking version of our friend Beast, if you want to. And at some point they did give him a costume. Basically, every members of X Factor had this costume with the big X on it. We don't have something like that in this universe online, but we have the M Slimline that gives us a big M, which kind of works. Instead of X Factor, it's M for mutants. But it works well enough to somewhat recreate the spirit of Beast when he was wearing a full costume as opposed to just a pair of briefs. And next we have our friend Colossus. Colossus didn't really change through the years, or whenever they did try to change him, they would pretty much bring him back to more or less his classic look. Sometimes they would try to tweak him a bit by adding shoulder pads or some crazy thing like that, as if the character needed that. Speaking of shoulder pads, here I'm using the Olgo, Prince Olgo shoulders. For the bodysuit, it's the flex suit. For the chest piece and the pants, it's a flex suit that comes straight from character creation. Or you could purchase those from, there's vendors in the Watchtower, in the War Room, and there's also vendors in the middle of the Hall of Doom. You can probably get those from there. The belt is the class belt, again also from character creation or from the vendors I just mentioned. The bracers are the Magic's Champion bracers, the Shazam bracers. Those you have to get from the broker by now. Actually, we still have the Shazam time capsule, so if you're lucky you could get them from the time capsule. And the boots are the Vengeful Surgeon boots. Sadly, it's a PvP style that you have to get as a villain, and then you could purchase it using replay badges for your hero character. As you can see, we can create a pretty darn good version of our friend Colossus. Colossus was only in the comics in the 90s. Somehow he probably made an appearance or two in the animated TV show, but he wasn't one of the main characters. The same with our friend Angel that I showed a bit earlier. And next we have our friend Iceman. The version you're seeing right now, you can use pretty much any slimline suit. You add the Arctic material on top of it, and presto, you have an Iceman character. And I'm also using the Arctic aura. So if you want, you could recreate this look for our friend Iceman, but I will show you an alternative in just a second. Again, Iceman also was he was part of the comics in the 90s, but he wasn't really part of the animated series. Or if he was probably only as a guest appearance once in a while. Although this is probably a closer approximation of our friend Iceman. Here I'm still using the Arctic aura, but instead of using the Arctic material, I'm just using the crystalline skin, and with a pair brief and a clasp belt, that does the trick for our friend Iceman. So this is pretty darn close to what our friend Iceman looked like in the comics, and even in some of the animated series. You guys may not remember this, but there was this awesome animated series called Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, in which Spider-Man was teaming up every episode with Iceman and with Firestar. And this is pretty much the classic version of Iceman that we had in that animated series. And next we have our friend Gambit, Sorry if you hear sirens in the background. Sadly, I live downtown, and sometimes that cannot be avoided. So our friend Gambit he was both part of the comics and the animated series, and he's a very typical 90s character. He had all the tropes of the 90s, the long coat, the name that wasn't really descriptive of his powers. He was a character straight out of the 90s. So for the coat, I went with the Gunslinger coat. It works really well to recreate our friend Gambit. The gloves, any kind of gloves would do the trick. Here I think I'm using the formal gloves, but any short gloves would work well enough. For the headpiece, it's the Brave Devil. The pants, it's the Flexsuit pants. And the boots are the Vengeful Surgeon boots. Somehow these are boots that kind of work with a lot of characters, and for our friend Gambit, they're the perfect boots for him. So within the context of DC Universe Online, you can create a pretty darn good version of our friend Gambit. And last but not least, we have our friend, the Wolverine. As you can see, you can create a pretty darn good version of our friend Wolverine if you want to. Towards the end of the 90s, Wolverine was had this brown and beige costume that was given to him, I think, by John Byrne. When John Byrne was drawing the X-Men. I guess somehow people didn't understand why a character like Wolverine would use a bright yellow costume, but thank the gods, that was changed a bit later on. Very quickly here, these are the Tech Ninja hands. The face mask is the Vigilante face mask, the Huntress face mask basically. For the headpiece, it's pretty much any slimline would do the trick. This is the full slimline. The chest piece is the slimline chest piece. The pants are the New Genesis pants. The boots are the tall classic boots. And the belt is the clasped belt. Pretty much everything here except the face piece and the hands come from character creation. Sadly, we don't have a chest piece that gives us the tiger stripes that our friend Wolverine has. Here I'm using the streak slimline. Like those stripes on the shoulder blades are about as close to getting tiger stripes as I was able to get. And obviously this should be a short sleeve, so if we could have a version of this with short sleeves, it would be maybe one step closer to what we need. And for the shoulders, I went with the Spindrift shoulders. I'm not sure why the costume had those shoulder pads. I guess for color balance, it's the only reason I can think of. So we can create a pretty darn good version of the yellow and blue and black version of Wolverine, even though it's not exactly accurate. I guess the Archer chest piece could be an option. Not too crazy about it, but again, it's either that or the streak slimline suit. I guess the quick suit could almost work. The pattern is obviously not correct, but it kind of gives a little bit the feeling of the look of our friend Wolverine. I guess the son of the Manta could maybe be an option. You have those black lines on the side that kind of works to recreate the tiger stripes that our friend Wolverine had, but there's a whole lot of black on the chest piece. But it is a short sleeve chest piece, and we do have the black lines on the side. So you decide if it's an option for you or not. And just a quick bonus, in the 90s when Jim Lee was working on the X-Men, at some point for some reason he gave them a variation of their black and yellow costumes. That lasted for about 3 issues. But here we can recreate a pretty darn good version of what was the black and yellow costumes that Jim Lee gave to the X-Men. And with our friend Wolverine, it creates a pretty accurate version of the character. And with the Al Ghul hairstyle, the Ra's al Ghul hairstyle, it works even better. So I thought you would enjoy seeing this look. So that is pretty much it for our 90s X-Men video. Again, sadly, I don't have the styles really to reproduce most of the female characters. I guess I'm gonna have to start either farming for styles with my female characters, or I'm gonna have to purchase styles using replay badges. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. So that is pretty much it for now, guys. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask so in the comment section down below, and I'll see what I can do about answering your questions. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.